I still remember the exact sound of the espresso machine at the Brooklyn Cafe where she told me it was over. This soft, hissing cough that came right after the grind, like the city itself was clearing its throat before delivering another hard truth. We were 26, rent poor but stubborn, the kind of couple who split subways twice and swore it would someday make a cute origin story. I was building an app no one believed in yet, a blue light filter plus mindful breaks plus micro-coaching, a Franken product stitched from my insomnia, my burnout, and my fear of wasting my 20s, and she was an assistant buyer at a chic Soho boutique, all brutal discounts and paper-thin kindness from bosses who said things like, fashion is pain, but meant you were disposable. On good days, New York felt like a dare we were brave enough to take. On bad days, it was a bill collector with a megaphone. She wore this cream sweater that morning, the one with the delicate cable knit I used to slip my fingers through while we watched Hulu on the futon, and she didn't touch her latte, and that's how I knew. "Evan," she said, and her voice already had the ending in it, "this isn't working. I can't keep waiting for your someday." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I'd start bargaining like a street vendor with God. She slid the ring back to me, thin, simple, a silver promise I'd bought from a place in the village that still took cash and believed in romance, and it clinked against the saucer like a tiny symbol announcing humiliation. I wanted reasons, bullet points I could tape to the wall and attack with solutions, but she didn't give me those. She gave me him. "His name's Grant," she said, like she was introducing me to a new dog I'd be dog-sitting. "He's stable." I knew the name because New York teaches you the vocabulary of your own insecurity. Private equity stable, East 74th stable, Hamptons in September stable. I'd seen him at a charity gala her boss dragged her to, a towering haircut in a midnight suit, the kind of guy whose watch could pay my student loans and still have enough left over to buy the watch a friend. He ran some fund that diversified into consumer wellness, which was code for owning nice parts of things ordinary people needed and charging them slightly more than they realized. She told me Grant understood timing, that he saw potential. And I said, "Babe, timing and potential are literally my whole life." And she shook her head, and I understood I had spoken in a dialect she no longer wanted to translate. The break wasn't a fight. It was a professionally executed pivot, a board decision, complete with a smile that said, "Thank you for your service." I walked home past brownstones that hid second kitchens and first marriages, past dogs that wore sweaters more expensive than my hoodie, past a kid doing kickflips on a cracked sidewalk who looked at me like he understood men who carry rings in their pockets they shouldn't. At our apartment, my apartment now, I took the ring from my pocket and set it on the windowsill, where the afternoon light made it look like a shining zero. Zero money, zero plan, zero her. That night I coded until my eyes went numb. I wasn't noble, I was petty. I didn't want enlightenment. I wanted revenge dressed up as self-improvement. Every time I refactored a function, I imagined Grant's immaculate jawline developing acne. I reworked onboarding to feel like a gamer's tutorial. I split the blue light filter into day and night modes. I built a micro-habit engine that whispered nudges instead of yelling them, like a friend who knew when to shut up. At 3:11 a.m., I came up for breath, poured cereal into a coffee mug, and realized my app had quietly become good. Not perfect, not beautiful, good. In the way a reliable bus is good, it shows up. I recorded a demo video on my cracked iPhone using a lamp I duct taped to a broom, and the next day I DM'd 30 micro-creators on TikTok who posted about productivity and study hacks. One replied. Her username was @NinaNotes, and she had a no-nonsense voice and a bedroom full of sticky notes that said things like, "Take your meds," and "Don't date your homework." She liked that my app didn't shame users. We agreed to a $200 pilot because $200 was a number that made my palms sweat. She posted, "The video did numbers that felt fake until Stripe sent me an email and the first annual subscription hit. $39. 90 seconds later, another. Then 5 more. I refreshed until the refresh button felt molested.
That night, I slept 4 hours and dreamed I was on a train with every person who'd ever doubted me, polite as penguins, and I woke up laughing because I realized I didn't need them to get off. I just needed to switch tracks. I added a focus room feature, a 30-minute co-work timer with soft city noise and a small circle in the corner that pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with your breathing. Nina made a second video, unpaid. She said it helped her ADHD brain to have a little buddy who doesn't judge me. The comments turned into confessions. Burned-out nurses on night shift, CS freshmen drowning in discrete math, a mom who DM'd me a picture of her daughter doing homework with the circle pulsing beside her face like a tiny moon. Downloads spiked. I fixed bugs while eating bodega sandwiches, told my landlord I could cover rent late but within the month, and I finally emailed my old professor who'd once said my code was messy in the way of people who think fast and sleep badly. He introduced me to a founder friend who introduced me to a seed fund that didn't ask me to dress like a mannequin. I pitched in a denim jacket that still smelled like Heartbreak and coffee grounds. "Look," I said, "most productivity apps yell at people. Mine keeps them company." They smiled. They asked numbers. I showed growth graphs that looked like hopeful staircases. They asked CAC and churn. I said low and lower. They offered $500K for 15%, and I signed like a man lighting a flare in a snowstorm. I moved out of the Brooklyn place and into a one-bedroom in Williamsburg that had actual doors and a kitchen narrow enough to make me cook efficiently. I bought a couch that didn't try to murder your lower back. I stopped checking her Instagram, mostly. I hired 2 engineers, one brilliant kid from Ohio who wrote code like music, and a former Apple designer who turned my duct-taped ideas into interfaces your thumb wanted to touch. We optimized onboarding until activation jumped to 62%. We launched a campus ambassador program. We made a night shift mode that dimmed the circle into a midnight ember. The reviews began to sound like letters. "Your app got me through finals without crying. It reminds me to breathe. Thank you for remembering." Not viral, but true. Money followed truth. A corporate wellness pilot in Austin, a school district in Oregon. Something B2B. We crossed 50K MRR 11 months after she left. I got a text from a number I'd archived. "Proud of you. Always knew you'd make it." I stared at the screen long enough to memorize the lie. One Saturday, I went to a friend's engagement at a rooftop in the meatpacking district, all glass railings and photogenic sunsets, the skyline purring like a cat that knows it's beautiful. I was nursing a club soda because I still didn't trust myself around champagne and memories, and then I heard her laugh. Hers, the laugh that used to live on my pillow, and the air tilted. She stepped out of an elevator wearing a dress that made the city look underdressed, her arm tucked into Grant's, and I thought, of course. Of course the universe would make the word stable, tall, tan, and accompanied by a bracelet that could pay for my Series A legal fees. She saw me. Her face did an expression I someday learned to call nostalgia mixed with auditing. She whispered something to him and walked over. "Evan, it's been a while." I smiled the way men do when they've learned to set fires without matches. "Yeah," I said, "long enough to build a life." And right then, as if the city were my stagehand, my phone buzzed with a push notification that we'd just crossed 100,000 active users. I didn't show her the screen. I didn't have to. But I saw the question in her eyes. How? When? Without me? And I realized revenge doesn't always arrive in neon. Sometimes it walks in calmly, orders a seltzer, and asks if you're ready to be kind. I wasn't. Not yet. Because the universe hadn't finished arranging the scene. Her fiancé, because that diamond could blind traffic, was already waving me over, grinning the way men grin when they assume you are an anecdote. "Come on," she said, touching my sleeve like old furniture. "Meet Grant." I took a breath, tasted the skyline, and walked into the part of the story where the tables were about to turn.
Grant's handshake felt like an overpriced leather steering wheel. Polished, confident, but strangely hollow. He gave that performative smile people practice in mirrors before investor dinners. "So, you're Evan. I've heard about your little app thing," he said, the word little landing like a mosquito on my neck. I smiled back, the polite predator kind, and replied, "Yeah, just something that's keeping 100,000 people focused these days." His jaw flexed, subtle, like an algorithm processing insecurity. She looked between us, nervous, the way people do when the past and the present accidentally bump shoulders. He started bragging about his new fintech startup, casually mentioning Series B funding and market disruption like confetti words thrown at a parade of himself. I nodded, pretending to listen, while my brain replayed the night she left me. Same tone, same stable vocabulary, different price tag. When the waiter passed, I ordered a ginger ale, and he ordered something that came with a story longer than its taste. Every sentence from him was a LinkedIn post waiting for engagement. Every glance from her was an apology wrapped in nostalgia. I didn't need to gloat, not yet. Revenge, I'd learned, was best served at room temperature. Just warm enough to feel human, just cold enough to remember. Later that night, my investor texted me, "Congrats, Forbes just confirmed your inclusion in their 30 under 30 founders to watch list." I looked up from the glowing screen and caught Grant scrolling his phone too, probably watching his portfolio dip a little after the market closed. Timing was merciful. I showed her my screen, not to flex, just to share the kind of news she once said would never come. Her face flickered, first pride, then regret, then something softer. "Heaven, that's amazing." "Yeah, guess my someday finally showed up." She laughed nervously. Grant asked if I'd be interested in collaborating, and for a moment the irony almost made me choke on my ginger ale. "Maybe, but I usually partner with people who believe in the underdog." He didn't get the jab, but she did. Her eyes flinched. Before leaving, I handed her my card, not to reconnect, but to remind her of the future she gave up. Weeks passed and our paths crossed again, this time at a tech conference in Austin. I was on stage, panel speaker for human-centric design, while she sat in the front row beside him, both wearing that expensive kind of boredom money buys. When the moderator asked me about failure, I said, "Sometimes failure wears lipstick and calls you baby. But if you're lucky, it teaches you how to build something real." The audience laughed, but her face froze. Later that evening, a thunderstorm cracked open the Texas sky, and she came to my hotel lobby alone, hair damp, voice trembling with memories. "Grant doesn't get me," she whispered, like she was rewriting the past. "He's not you." I looked at her, remembering the kid who once left me for stability, now standing unsteady in her designer heels. "You're right," I said softly. "He's not." I wanted to feel triumph, but all I felt was closure wearing a tired suit. She asked if I ever thought of her. I said, "Only when my app crashes. Reminds me what happens when something you love stops responding." She smiled through tears. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I just finally upgraded." She left before I could see her break, and for the first time, I didn't follow. The next morning, I flew back to New York, signed a multi-million acquisition deal with a wellness platform, and walked into a future that didn't need her name for context. Revenge, I realized, isn't proving someone wrong. It's becoming so right, they disappear from the equation entirely. She looked smaller without the noise of the world around her, sitting across from me in that Austin hotel lobby. Makeup streaked, her perfume fighting the rain. I'd imagined this scene 100 times. Her return, her apology, my quiet triumph. But the reality wasn't cinematic. It was strangely human. I saw the same girl who once ate ramen with me on our broken couch and laughed about our future penthouse view, now drowning in regret inside designer heels. "You were right about everything," she said, voice low enough to sound like a confession. I wanted to tell her I'd moved on, but part of me, the part that once begged her to stay, was still curious why she came. "Grant's losing everything," she said, eyes darting toward the marble floor. "Bad investments. He's different now." I didn't say what I was thinking, that men like Grant don't change, They just get audited by life. I thought stability mattered more than passion, she added. But I was wrong. I nodded, pretending not to care while my phone buzzed again. Another partnership email, another zero in my account, another piece of the revenge I never asked for. You built all this without me, she said, half smiling, half breaking. No, I replied. I built it because of you. That line hung in the air like smoke between us. She reached out, touched my hand. The same touch that once felt like home now felt like history. Can we start over? She asked. I looked at her, at the storm still dripping from her hair, and realized that some ghosts aren't meant to be resurrected. You already did, I said, standing up. You started over when you left. I walked out, the sound of rain hitting the glass behind me like applause from the universe. Outside, the city lights reflected off puddles like tiny constellations, and I smiled, not out of pride, but peace. Revenge wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could survive after being left behind. And as I climbed into the black Tesla waiting to take me to the airport, I saw her silhouette in the glass doors watching me leave for the last time. Some stories don't end with, I got her back. The best ones end with, I got myself back.
Months passed, and life became quieter, not emptier, just clearer. My company's rebrand went live. New logo, new offices, and new faces who didn't know my story, only my success. The press called me the mindfulness millionaire, though I still burned midnight coffee and answered customer emails like a rookie. One morning, a message landed in my inbox. Subject line, Urgent Partnership Opportunity, Grant & Co. Capital. I almost laughed. The same firm her fiancé had bragged about over cocktails now wanted to collaborate on a mental wellness initiative. I clicked open the email, and there it was. His signature, still smug, still expensive, but the tone was different, polite, even desperate. Their investors were pulling out, their wellness division bleeding losses. Irony has impeccable timing. I agreed to a meeting. We met in their Manhattan office, a place that used to intimidate me. Glass walls, marble floors, a view of the skyline that tried too hard to prove something. Grant looked older, the kind of tired that money doesn't fix. He smiled, forced but hopeful. Evan, we've been following your growth. I think we can help each other, he said. I leaned back, letting the silence remind him who held the leverage now. Funny, I replied. Last time we met, you called it my little app thing. His grin faltered. I misjudged you, he admitted. We all do that sometimes. Not all of us, I said. Some of us learn from it. He offered equity, partnership, everything he once thought I could never touch. I signed the deal, but not for revenge, for dominance disguised as grace. A week later, headlines read, Grant & Co. merges with Focus Arc under new leadership. His name was below mine. She saw it, I'm sure. Everyone did. A month later, she showed up at a charity gala, wearing red like it meant something. You own the company now? She asked, voice small under the music. No, I said. I lead it. Her eyes shimmered, half pride, half pain. You really did it, she whispered. Yeah, I said. I did. And not to prove you wrong, just to prove I could. She smiled, that sad, cinematic kind of smile people give when they realize they're no longer the main character. I left early that night, walking out into the New York air that smelled like rain and redemption. For the first time, I wasn't chasing closure or success or her. I was just free. And somewhere between the city lights and the sound of taxis, I finally understood the sweetest revenge isn't becoming what they wanted. It's becoming everything they'll never reach again.